the top seed in the NFC playoffs. Final score, Bo? You know, I'm going to take San Francisco in a close. I'm going to say San Francisco 20-17. Brandon?
I'm going to say Green Bay 24-21.
Okay. Well, joining us now on the program is a friend of the show. He's been on a few times. For many different reasons. Mainly, Seattle Arena talk. But today he's here to talk a little bit about the NFL Divisional round, primarily the Seahawks and their quest for a Super Bowl this week against the Atlanta Falcons. Joining us on the program is Commando Dave. Good morning, Commando.
Hey, good morning. Happy New Year to you guys. Good to be on the show with Steve and Bo for the first time in 2013. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
What you know, Bo?
I know a lot more than I did last time we talked, Dave.
Good, man. You know the Cowboys aren't in the playoffs, right?
Oh, I'm well aware of that.
Okay, just checking.
Well, first and foremost, Happy New Year to you, Dave. I hope everything is well with you.
Oh, yeah, good.
So as you know, Dave, the Seattle Seahawks last week went on the road and finally captured their first playoff road victory since 1983. As a matter of fact, I was 2 years old when that happened. You can exactly understand the importance of what that means to finally get that monkey off the Seahawks back, and they actually did it in a convincing fashion after jumping out, getting jumped on by 14 points right out of the gate. They come back. Assume control of the game, do a very good job against Alfred Morris, and all of a sudden the Seahawks end up cruising in that game. When at first it looked bleak, now all of a sudden you get the Atlanta Falcons, and a lot is made about the Atlanta Falcons, but I think we can understand that until Matt Ryan can prove that he can take advantage of everything that's been given to him in the playoffs, you would have to assume that the Seahawks have the advantage in this game. First and foremost, your thoughts on this matchup, and anything that's maybe under the surface that you can point to as being a key for the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, let's start with what may not be the key for the Seattle Seahawks, and I hate to kind of reverse it on you, but the one thing that is kind of concerning about this game, of course, is the travel, and more importantly, the 3,000 miles that they're going to have to go again approximately, and more importantly, you guys, is the start time. Steve, for years we've always talked about the East Coast start time for the Seattle Seahawks, getting them off to a slow start. Last week, of course, it was a regular start for the Seattle Seahawks with that 1:30 West Coast time game clock, body clock, I should say, for them. They got off to a slow start nonetheless, but did make up that ground. The one thing I'm a little bit disappointed about the divisional rounds is that on Saturday you have 4:30 and 8 o'clock start times, and then on Sunday you have the 1 and 4:30 Eastern start times, and that's the one thing that kind of concerns me, that goes against the Seahawks in terms of this particular matchup. To answer your question, what really goes in favor of the Seahawks is just the roll they're on. When I go back to that slow start, you feel great about yourself as a football team when you're able to go on the road, spot a team 14 points, and then just flat shut them down for 3 quarters and put up 24 points of your own. And so, to me, I really see that as being one of the things that really is in favor of the Seattle Seahawks. That type of mindset for that defense. The defense has been very strong at times this season, and then we've seen some defensive lapses that have cost the Seahawks greatly in some games. Most importantly, that's really stuck in my craw, that Week 1 Arizona game. I won't get into that, but I see that the strength of the Seattle Seahawks going into this game is the defense now has put those lapses behind them, you guys, and I see them, as you said, Matt Ryan got a lot of pressure on him to, we haven't heard that Matty Ice for a long time, and so he's either going to come out of this game as Matty Ice or Matty Melted.
Well, you mentioned the defense, and I think it really starts right there. And to me, I'm not worried about Richard Sherman or Brandon Browner this week.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being is I think those two can match physicality with Julio Jones and Rodney White. That's not to me the concern.
Mm-hmm.
The concern to me is Tony Gonzalez.
Right.
And I think because that is their de facto running game.
Mm-hmm.
You look at what Tony Gonzalez has been able to do against some very good corner cover linebackers in his career.
Mm-hmm.
I like KJ Wright, I like Leroy Hill, and I like Bobby Wagner, but I also like Tony Gonzalez in this matchup because if Matty Ice is able to use that short zone
mm-hmm.
to his advantage to a point where maybe Cam Chancellor has to come down,
mm-hmm.
really to stick that body on Tony Gonzalez, it's going to leave one-on-one matchups to the outside,
mm-hmm.
as we saw last week. Even though that RG3 was gimpy, he was able to take advantage of Brandon Browner, and he was able to take advantage of Marcus Trufant as well too. So with that situation, if they can neutralize Tony Gonzalez, maybe just maybe you're going to probably see a Matty meltdown. But again, I still think number one, it all starts up front with the Seahawks defense up front.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you lose a guy like Chris Clemens, then all of a sudden that plays a factor in for it to me a little bit. So I'm a little weary. Dave.
No, you're right about that. And if there's ever a time, I should say, that the Seattle Seahawks need to get that pass rush going, it is in this game, no question about it. We go back to that Green Bay game where they had sack after sack after sack after sack, you guys. And I think you would agree, Steve. We both kind of sat up in our seats going, okay, this defense is really coming together. This is exactly what they've needed. Here we go. But we really have not seen that type of pressure. And of course, that was an extraordinary amount of, sacks in a game, of course. But right, but they just haven't, even come close to anything like that. But in this game, you're going to need that type of pressure on the quarterback without a doubt. Now, when you talk about neutralizing Tony Gonzalez, I couldn't agree more. And I got two words for you: Vernon Davis. Cam Chancellor has to put a Vernon Davis-like smackdown on Tony Gonzalez. Say what you want to say about the Bounty Gate situation and whatnot, and I said on John Clayton's show before, if they had called it the Tinkerbell program, it wouldn't have, been that big of a deal. But when you're talking about bounty, then that just sets up a certain connotation in everyone's mind. But this is the National Football League, and you see hits like you saw on Vernon Davis. There's no bounty in it. And hits don't come any cleaner, harder, or more impactful than that, even though he got flagged for it. But there's no bounty in that thing. And this is just a hard-hitting game. And so I say all that to say is that Vernon Davis went out of that game. There was no bounty on it. And that's what we need to see out of this secondary, most importantly out of Cam Chancellor this week, is a non-bounty, got to get you out of the game hit on the guy like Tony Gonzalez.
Well, what's interesting about this is, Chris Clemens, he goes down, and let's be perfectly honest, it probably came at the worst time of the year.
Oh, man.
For him to sustain, that type of injury, and of course my thoughts and prayers go out to Chris Clemens, and,
right.
and hopefully you have a healthy rehab, and you will be back on the field sooner rather than later. But now all of a sudden, the one key element to Seattle's pass rush was the ability to have Bruce Irvin come in on passing situations for Red Bryant, and all of a sudden you had two very high energy, high motor speed ends coming from two different angles.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you don't have that extra wrinkle in your pass rush. You have to keep Red Bryant on the field in passing situations. He's not exactly the greatest pass rusher out there. And you have a Bruce Irvin who, now granted, he hasn't been playing a full slate of downs, and maybe that that will allow him to have that reserve in his tank because of that situation. We've never seen him in a full slate of downs at any game per season, and now you're going, that's going to be your key pass rush. You still have Brandon Mebane, you have Valen Branch, who had a fantastic game last week, by the way.
Right.
But that's the whole thing. I mean, to me, that's the concern, that you don't have that extra element. And again, I just, something tells me that if the Seahawks are to drop it, that's going to be the reason why, because they couldn't get an effective enough pass rush on Matty Ice.
No, that's a good point.
Well, Steve, I think that I don't.
Yeah, to me, that's the key to the loss if they lose.
Steve, you brought that up, and that actually brings up kind of one of the X factors in this game is the blitzes and the stunts that they dial up on defense to make up for that loss of pass rush. I think that's going to be key to this game.
Well, let's talk offensively, because I think the one thing that everybody should know about Atlanta's defense is, next to Seattle on third down defense, allowing quarterbacks to complete on third down. Seattle actually, that was their bugaboo. If there was anything bad about Seattle's defense this year, that was it. Their ability to get off the field on third down. There was only one team there was a couple teams that were worse than Seattle on third down, and the team right after them was the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep.
And basically that lets me know that even on third down, Seattle's going to have the ability to move the chains. But the other thing about Atlanta's defense, Dave, is the fact that they're just not great against the run. They're really not that great against the run. And I would probably assume you're going to see a heavy dose of Marshawn Lynch this week.
Oh yeah.
To a point where you're probably going to be looking at 25 to 30 carries this week from Marshawn.
No, and you're right about that. I think Atlanta's like 29th against the run or something like that, if my memory serves me correctly. And I couldn't agree any more with you on the beast mode. Just has to be kicked in. The good thing about I did mention the travel and the start time and that type of thing, but the good thing about the ground game that you're talking about is that it's on turf, field turf, in the dome, and so based on that, I do see, as you said, a healthy dose of beast mode, just wearing that defense down. And this is a game that they can't give up 2 touchdowns right off the bat. Last week I wasn't really concerned about 2 touchdowns. I mean, I never really got nervous at all. I think probably because it was early enough in the game, and I just felt the Seahawks, would settle down, which they did. But this is really a team that I can't see them giving up that early lead and then trying to play from behind. But I can see them getting up a touchdown, 10 points or so, and having the Falcons play from behind, and as they're playing from behind, as you said, Steve, just keep handing it to Marshawn Lynch.
I have 2 more questions for you, Dave,
Yep.
and before we let you go, number 1 is just the effect of Russell Wilson. I think what's interesting about the kid is, from day one we had started to see, we saw things that we had never seen before.
Right.
And it started in his first rookie camp, where the veterans of this team bought into him. That to me, that's something that we had never seen, because what's interesting about this, and we talk about some of these tilting the field type of players and these impact players, like I'll give you a good example. RG3, as fantastic of a rookie as he's been, he didn't really start gaining the respect of his elders, and he didn't really get the captaincy of that team until week 6. Russell Wilson got that right from Jump Street.
Right.
And just his ability, from starting from preseason, going through the repetitions of the first 6 weeks of the season, to really Pete Carroll undoing the training wheels and giving him the entire playbook. The guy has been, once the responsibility was heaped onto his shoulders, this guy took off. I mean, his play elevated to a different level, to a point where he completed, in the last 8 weeks of the season, when the Seahawks went 7-1, he completed pretty much 68% of his passes, 16 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions.
Right.
You don't see that from a rookie. As a matter of fact, it goes the other way. When rookies get that type of responsibility, sometimes it can bog them down, where you see those type of rookie mistakes, but not Russell Wilson. This guy looks like a 10-year veteran as a rookie, and because of it, he doesn't look like a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. Your thoughts on Russell Wilson?
Well, my thoughts on Russell Wilson really start, of course, with the head coach, Pete Carroll. And the reason I say that, you guys, is as a football player, all you want is the ability to play, work your butt off, and know that you can be in position to beat out the guy in front of you. So getting back to the old compete philosophy of Coach Carroll. And so it's because of that I think Russell Wilson was able to then thrive mentally, because he's most rookies come in. 11 guys got drafted this year, this past draft, as quarterbacks. 5, of course, wound up starting. But when you look at those other 6, they probably never had the mental game to think that they're going to be able to compete for the job, and so as a result, they're sitting on the sideline. Russell Wilson, from day one, based on Pete Carroll's system, knew that he could compete for the job, and from that, mentally got into the game from the standpoint of, I might be a rookie, but I came here as a quarterback that can play in the National Football League, and I'm a starter. He just had that I'm a starter mentality right from the beginning. And we've seen it, game in, game out, game in, game out. I talked about the lapses that the defense has had this year, and every one of those lapses, we've seen Russell Wilson almost bring the team back to win the game. Even when they left, like 20 seconds on the clock against Detroit, he was still, had the ability to keep the team in the game. And so what we've seen this year out of a rookie quarterback, we've seen some great performances, of course. RG3, there's no question about it, and the rest of the rookies as well. But, our main focus has been our guy, Russell Wilson. And to that end, man, it's just been amazing to watch this guy grow. As you said, Coach Carroll took the training wheels off, and since then, as the rookies, or he's never played as a rookie, and as you mentioned, the veterans have just rallied around this guy, and in the second half of the season, and now really going into the deeper into the playoffs, man, this guy is he's a second-year quarterback. I mean, he's playing like a second-year quarterback. So I can't say enough about Russell Wilson, man, and the way that he has really guided this team. But like I said, it starts with, to me, Coach Pete Carroll and putting guys. You talk about putting guys in position to win. Well, he put Russell Wilson into a position to win, and that position was starting over a free agent.
Dave, you and I both are conducive to magic carpet rides out. We've had a few in our day.
Right.
Most notably on the baseball side, '95, which really kind of shaped the landscape
right.
of baseball in this town. And then obviously in 2005, the Seahawks
right.
rode a 13-3 to the Super Bowl. And this feeling this season, it feels like the stars are that there's something in the water. That regardless of the opponent that's in front of us, this
right.
just has this incredible chip on its shoulder where it's almost like the 91 Huskies in a sense where every single time they take the field, they just have this confidence where they know they're going to win, and losing is just not something that's even in their vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's been this trickle-down effect to the fans to a point where there's the same feeling when the Seahawks take the field. It just seems like this is something completely different. I haven't felt this way since the Seahawks, of 2005 when they went to the Super Bowl, where
right.
it just had that feeling like something magical can happen.
Right.
Do you feel that same way? I mean, is there something in the water here? Do you look at this as not a legit Super Bowl contender, but somebody that you expect to be in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think the reason that I feel that way is because of the youth on this team. Young guys, they don't know anything other than what they believe to be the reality. And the reality that this Seattle Seahawks team believes is that there is no one that can beat them. Now, the difference between the 05 team and this team's path to the Super Bowl, of course, is one extra game and the fact that they have to do it on the road. But my guy Vince, the number 2 caller of the John Clayton Show, said a few weeks ago on the John Clayton Show, in fact, that he thought that this team was better than the 05 team, which is a pretty bold statement to make, given the fact that...
I agree with him.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's a bold statement to make, given the fact that that team went to the Super Bowl. However, this team is built, a lot different, and the youth is there. And as I said, to Coach Carroll's credit, the compete philosophy is, I really believe, you guys, is what has raised this team up to the level that they're playing. Because when we saw the suspension of Brandon Browner, then we also saw defensive backs coming in and doing the job. We're going to see that, I believe, this week with Bruce Irvin. And so that, I really believe, is the difference between this team and any other Seahawks team that we've seen in the past. And I do expect this team to go down, beat the Atlanta Falcons. It's unfortunate that they have to, play either the Packers or the 49ers, because that Week 1 loss to Arizona is still stuck in my craw as the difference between them, winning the division or not. But taking one game at a time, I do see them going down and beating the Atlanta Falcons. And like you said, this is the type of team that I'm expecting them to go and take it all the way.
I'm with you. Before we let you go, Dave, do you have a score that you want to throw out there? Do you have a prediction of the score?
I really don't. I just, when I heard you guys in the last segment, throwing all these different scores and whatnot, and people like to throw scores, and I'm like, man, I don't know where these guys are getting these scores from. They got a crystal ball or something there at Fantasy Sideline Network, but no, I just.
We do, yeah.
I say,
it has it, actually.
It's going to be a close one. I'll say that. I'll say it's going to be within, a touchdown. So.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Dave. How about this? Next, we didn't get to the big story in Seattle this week because yesterday some very big news and obviously that's been bypassed for some Seahawks football. Obviously they're probably like A1, A1A as far as news in this. But you come on next week's show and we'll get into it because I know that you and I basically look at the Malouf brothers as pretty much in the same light.
Mm-hmm.
Get your thoughts on the deal that could be closed. That would bring the Sacramento Kings to Seattle to the Key Arena for at least 2 seasons, starting with this upcoming season, the 2013-2014 NBA season. So why don't you come on next week's show?
Roger.
We'll get into this.
Provided that the Seahawks do what they have to do, we're going to be able to talk a little bit about the NBA situation, because yesterday, of course, was an onslaught with that. And as far as I'm concerned, you said 1A and that type of thing. But the story for me right now is the Seattle Seahawks. If the things roll out for the NBA, that's not going to even happen until October. I'd be glad to come on next week and touch on it, but I'm going to be wanting to talk Seahawks football unless by some crazy circumstance they lose that game, then I'll be only talking about the Sacramento Kings coming to Seattle.
I'll tell you what, I'll make you a compromise. We can talk about both. We'll touch a little bit on the NBA situation, but if the Seahawks are playing the 49ers or the Packers for the NFC Championship, that'll be our main focal point of discussion. But I'd still like to get your opinion on it. So why don't we just touch on both?
Yeah, of course. I'm being silly, a little bit, silly on that thing. No, looking forward to coming on with you guys at all times and talking about whatever you guys want to talk about.
Sounds good. All right, Dave. Well, you have a good afternoon.
Roger that, you guys. Go Seahawks. Time to hawk and roll.